So Parashara gives this nice little breakdown here. The second house, Argala, makes one wealthy and fortunate. The third gives co-born happiness, makes one indulgent, and gives intelligence. The fourth house, Argala, gives houses, livestock, and family. Houses, we understand livestock. It can also be cars and vehicles. The fifth house gives children, grandchildren, and a person endowed with understanding. The sixth gives fear from enemies. Seventh gives wealth and happiness from spouse. The eighth gives misery and trouble. And the ninth gives bhagya. The 10th gives kingly respect. And the 11th gives profits and gains. The Argala of the 12th gives abundant expenses. So I made a little chart here.
Thank you for doing this chart too. Thanks for doing the chart.
All these charts, without the charts, it's so hard to understand this stuff, isn't it? It'll go in. So we look at the first house. Looking at Argala in general from the first house, first and seventh. If there's more planets with the Lagna than there is with the seventh, it'll tend to obstruct marriage and relationship. More planets with the seventh house, it'll tend to promote relationship. Or whatever the signification of the bhava is. The seventh house, it all depends on the planets. Whether the significations of that planets are relating to that house or not. Like we did with Mars and K2 and all that with the fourth house. That seventh house from it, it's going to block or help those significations opposite.
I see.
Okay. Second house, wealth, food. All planets here obstruct children in the second house. Why? What's the second house doing for children? The fifth house.
It's obstructing it.
10th house obstruction. So the person, they're too busy working to get the things that are, whatever is in the second house signified in there. Say it's Jupiter. They might have lots of money, but they're so busy working to make money that it's hurting the children reality. So any planet in there obstructs, delays the children in the life. Because the person is pursuing to try and make gains for that planet in the second house.
You say Rahu shows a hero for imprisonment?
Yeah.
Shows what?
Rahu in the second. Because there's three of us, we're going to be worried now. We're going to go to jail.
Well, it could be all kinds of imprisonment.
Yeah.
Well, you'll see in the...
Let me out of here!
Yeah. Is it because it has Argala on the fourth house?
Our next verse, he talks about Papa Argala.
Okay.
And when he talks about Papa Argala, because Papa Argala, there's Subha Argala and Papa Argala. A malefic will give Subha Argala. And a malefic will give Papa Argala. Meaning if Rahu's there, you're going to get gains through whatever means Rahu wants. If Jupiter's there, the person will definitely do good sattvic things to get gains. If Rahu's there, the person can do some pretty tamasic things or even lie or cheat or whatever they need to do to get the gains. Saturn there, Mars there, they'll fight a lot to get the gains. Whatever that planet's significating, the person will do. So by the fact that Rahu's there, the person might end up in lying, cheating, or stealing, or maybe they're in work where certain laws just, okay, we'll sign that off, just make sure you don't tell anybody, or okay, we'll sell you this, but even if you don't have the license, because these kind of things are with Rahu in the second. So for that reason, when it gets to be too strong and other things are happening, it's also causing a fourth house Argala on the 11th. So again, Rahu's supporting gains in two different ways. So it shows imprisonment in that way, chances are.
Did you say that also all applies to K2 there in the second?
Not as much. Yeah.
There's a movie about a guy who married this woman and he received all kinds of benefits from her father, big job, money, all kinds of resources, a big palatial house in London, and he didn't love the woman. He was like having sex with this woman who he really felt some animal passion for, and he couldn't get his wife pregnant, right? But he got the other woman pregnant, and he ended up killing her and killing some other lady. And the whole theme of the movie was like, you know, this guy, he started talking about, well, you know, luck is like, some people just have luck. And so this guy, basically, he pushed his luck to the limit. He got away with murder, but he was just still like, you know, like, he had this expression on his face the whole movie, like, please, just kill me already. And I thought, wow, that seems like Rahu in the second, getting gains through whatever means.
Through whatever means.
Right.
Now, Rahu in the second house from Lagna and 11th house from Aruda Lagna. Malefics there make, they say, gains through questionable means. Not always. For example, what Rahu, your partner had Rahu 11th from Aruda Lagna, and Sanjay told him to, or Saturn. Saturn. And Sanjay said, invest in oil.
Oil and metals.
Yeah, because those are significations of Saturn. Now, oil is definitely not it's questionable means if we really get down to grounds with things, but relative to other things available, it's the better questionable means than forging money. To make, right?
Which is what he did in the past. Was to forge Italian coins.
Yeah.
He could make them look exactly like the real thing.
So, in this way,
I had Rahu in the 11th from my religion.
yeah.
And someone suggested...
I actually noticed once that.
Right?
I was like, I wonder what kind of work she's done in the past.
I've never done anything like that,
Uh-huh.
seriously. And someone suggested I invest in this oil deal.
Oil
In
is
oil,
more
I said
for
no, because-
Saturn than Rahu,
Okay,
but
okay.
but and you said no because
Because I didn't want to support big business.
big business, yeah.
You
Well, that's the thing.
know,
Have you worked with
all the
exports or
You better
imports
stop
or
driving.
no? What type of, have you done any Rahu?
I used to be a waitress when I had served alcohol.
And you serve alcohol?
I'm a vegetarian division. I would have to do that. That was one thing I liked. That I did for money that I didn't like.
Something Tomasic there.
I want to start with that. I've got Rahu and definitely Mars in second house.
Uh-huh.
I don't do any of that stuff. No healing or this thing.
Does it depend on the rest of the chart?
Not yet.
It depends definitely on the rest of the chart. And it depends on its relationship to the Lagna as well. It depends on the Lagna, depends on the moon, depends on all the other gunas in the
So if
chart.
a person had a tendency based on the sun, moon, the lagna, then
We have to judge the character of the person first.
the character.
Yeah.
Right.
Which basically we're looking at the guna of the person.
I see.
And then within that we start looking at the other indications.
Mm.
And Guruji taught us in the first lecture here a little bit about looking at the guna of a person.
Right.
All downloadable online. So.
But then there's also the possibility of people being imprisoned unjustly.
Yeah, but that's going to be more from Aruda Lagna.
Okay. Or like you had Nelson Mandela who was imprisoned for his movement.
Mhm.
So.
Can you look at the second house to be your parents and your family? What kind of the family situation rather than necessarily, well, it's all included, but that could be something that Rahu would represent, your early childhood.
Yeah, it represents a little craziness in that time
Like
period.
alcoholism in your family, perhaps.
That kind of stuff. Yeah.
So I have a question. I mean,
Okay.
you said the character is defined by the gunas.
hmm
Okay, because I look at my chart.
That's one main
Yeah,
aspect.
but when I
Yeah.
look at my chart, like the caste, like Brahma, Kshatriya,
Uh-huh.
Vaishya, and so that's higher. But then when I look at the guna, it's lower. So how do you know which one is more?
No, I mean like the guna of the Lagna. Like what planets are in the Lagna. Who's the Lagna Lord? Where's the Lagna Lord placed? What planets are aspecting and conjunct the Lagna Lord? And what sign is it in? And then looking at the moon and the moon sign in a
That's
similar
different
way.
from the gunas that.
Yeah,
tell
not
me.
just the Kuta gunas, yeah. They actually evaluate the Lagna. What is the person's nature? Third house, Parakrama, force needed to get house's goals. It says makes a person mukta. Mukta means, literally it can mean freed up or indulgent. A person who has loose morals. the third house. Benefics gives siblings and supporters. The person will talk sweetly, can be too nice, good for sannyasins. Malefics, they give the person the ability to get whatever they want through whatever means necessary. The 11th, how they're getting what they need. And it's the house of gains as it is. Benefics, we get gains through good means. Malefics, gains through less good means. What do you have 11th from Lagna and Aruda Lagna? Nothing. And what sign is ruling 11th from Aruda Lagna?
Gemini.
Gemini.
Lagna.
And aspected by anything?
Venus.
Venus. So with stocks, you should look into because that's the area that you should be looking at. That's the house that's going to give the most gains for you. Right there is that Gemini with the Venus aspect. But you just do the market. You don't do specific stocks. Because if you did specific stocks, that's where you want to look because that's what you can make money through. Okay, the Sukha Argala from the 4th house. Gains from properties and vehicles. Who's doing the work for you? Your ability to delegate work. It also shows for you from Lagna, it shows what you consider happiness. But at the same time, from any other house, it'll show what that house considers happiness. So, where do we look for what the 5th house considers happiness?
8th house.
The 8th. So what's that mean about what the 5th considers happiness?
Knowledge. Whole knowledge.
The ability to look within inside. Because the chitta, it's the mind, it's the intelligence. If the intelligence can't go inside, when the intelligence can go inside and understand itself, then it's happy. When it's trying to understand the external world, it'll never be happy.
So the 8th house is like introspection or meditation.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
That's why it's the occult, because occult generally should be spirits, has something to do with spirit, which spirit's inside. So
planets that are good for that would be good in the 8th house.
planets.
Like K2. For people who have Rahu in the 2nd, with K2 be good for that.
Any
introspection.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, we can think about the bad
It'll be different. It'll be different aspects for each planet. We'll give different. From the 10th house, if we look at the happiness from the 10th house, what's happiness from the 10th house? Huh?
Being yourself.
How powerful you
Oh,
are.
how powerful you are.
Yeah.
Oh.
How strong you are. Your career, you should rise up. You don't go and just come home meekly. Career is about growing in the world and making yourself a better, more known, more seen, more powerful.
Oh, fame.
11th house. What makes the 11th house happy?
money.
Money in the 2nd.
A big bank account. 11th, the 11th is the gains, the money coming in. But if you're not saving it, then the 11th isn't happy. The 11th is happy when you're saving it. So you see how there's this connection. And in this way, we got to look at every house from every house to see how they're all working together.
So if you have a good career, that's good for your relationship.
Exactly. Everything is relating to everything. So sometimes when you see a problem in a certain area, you'll hear sometimes the person will say, oh, once you get married, it'll be okay. Or, oh, once you get a job, that'll be okay. Or, oh, once you buy a house, you'll be okay. And in this way, they're looking at they're looking relative like this. And the 11th, or the 10th from the 4th, shows the respect of a king, the work you will perform to get results. If stronger than the 4th, there's less delegation of power, and more work is carried by the person. Bottom line is, it obstructs the 4th. If you're at work, you're not at home. The more you have to work, the less you're at home. And occasionally some people get happy by their work, but most people would rather have a billion other things they'd rather be doing. So, not always, but depending on yogas on the chart.
The yoga really takes you away from home.
At the moment. The last few years, though, I've been very lucky. So, teaching yoga most of the time and doing Ayurveda. So, the 5th house is the intelligence and planning needed. It shows future, children, students. It shows support. Plans to make the objectives happen. Benefics show good plans that will fructify. It's a blessing. Malefics show bad plans to get power and authority, and can sometimes damage the future. For malefics if fifth from something, if there's a problem with a bhava, and there's malefics fifth from it, the planning for that can be wrong. For example, from the fourth house, education. 4 regards education. The fifth house from it's the eighth. So what's the planning needed for education?
You need to get student loans, you have to...
You need to get loans. And then what happens once we're in school?
You have to do homework and
Discipline.
study and
Takes you away from home.
You have to research.
Right.
You have to do your homework. And if you're doing your homework, you're not out hanging out with everybody. You're alone, sitting there, reading in a book, doing homework. You're this more separated reality. So that's the fifth. That's the planning needed. You need to plan to make your homework. That eighth house is going to show the planning relative to ninth house is protection, past karma, past experience. It's the advice of elders. So we saw he had that Jupiter in the ninth house. It was giving obstruction, but basically that Jupiter is advice obstructing his plans. So his plans, he might plan this or that, and then the astrologer says this, or the guru says that, and because it's unobstructed, he listens. So by the fact of it, the benefit giving obstruction, it's actually a good thing. And let's just jump real fast, this page, the next page, just ahead to read this verse. Huh? We don't have that much left. We only have a few more verses. So here, Prashar says, benefics giving Argala will give many types of happiness. Papa Argala, caused by malefics, gives partial happiness. And mixed planets can give mixed results. So the thing is sometimes when these malefics are giving Argala, it doesn't mean that it's a good thing. Because if there's malefics in the fifth house giving Argala, the person is doing malefic plans to get power. Fifth house has to do with power for the Lagna. So they're planning all kinds of things to... Now, if they have a Jupiter obstructing it, it's actually good because it's blocking a malefic thing from taking place. I have Saturn in the second house from Lagna, Jupiter in the 12th. So that Saturn in the second would make me do questionable means to make gains, but that Jupiter is obstructing it. So the guru is obstructing any questionable means and making me do a sattvic thing for sustenance. So sometimes the obstruction can be a good thing, if by a benefic. Relative to the indications, though. So you see how we have to take it... It's becoming a holistic story now, yes?
Yeah.
Okay.
So for Rahu in the second, a benefic in the 10th would obstruct the Rahu from doing bad things.
Why in the 10th? That's the 10th gives obstruction to the 4th. 12th gives obstruction to the 2nd.
Sometimes, okay, so
Is there anything in the 12th?
10th on the second.
no.
So,
Okay, let's see what's the second. I'll go back and study.
Okay. So when we see these planets in the 9th house, it's good advice from those kind of people. So for Umesh, particularly with that Jupiter in the 9th, he gets good advice from gurus, from anybody that has strong Jupiter, that's representing Jupiter in his life, that's significated by Jupiter. Anybody else have 9th house planets?
I have a moon.
Moon. So for mother and motherly figures in your life, give good advice. Anything in the 5th?
Nothing.
Nothing. So your plans are often obstructed by this advice that's coming from the moon, but it's good advice because it's a benefit. So it's better that it obstructs your plans because it's giving you a better plan. 6th house, enemies, obstructions, bad habits. So bad habits that shorten longevity. If we look at the 8th, misery, suffering, but it's also new beginnings and transformation. So if we look from the 10th house, the 5th house brings new jobs, transformations of jobs. Now, a planet in the 6th house will show obstruction to those changes happening. Very important. 6th house is the unhealthy things we do. 8th house, it shows longevity. So that 6th house will obstruct the longevity. 6th house planets, if there's, will shorten the lifespan.
What about Ketu in 6th house?
Still will shorten the lifespan.
Any planets in the 6th shorten the lifespan?
In general, by the bad habits represented through them. Yeah.
This is the regular 6th house. Plain old Rashi 6th house.
I'm talking 6th house. A minute ago I was talking 6th house from the 10th, which would be 3rd. Now, if you notice, Argala is showing us how all the Varga charts are working. When we go into the Dashamsha, what house do we look at for change of career? 5th house, the house of transformation. And the house that blocks that's the 6th house. What does the 6th house show in the Dashamsha?
Working for others.
What did I say?
Serving.
The third house.
Okay.
The 6th from the 10th. Sorry.
6 from the 10th.
Just
is the third
retirement
house.
or changing jobs.
Retirement, time off, not working. Instead of a change of job, it's obstructing the job changing. There's like not working happening. So it's that obstruction. So in the way from the particular bhava of reference, the Argalas are applying in all of Arga charts. Once we understand all these significations and their deeper implications. So even here, new transformations, opening a new business. The 6th house is all the codes and laws that block a new business from opening. So there's a general concept. So let's say now we understood Argala a little bit deeper than just obstructing. We can see that sometimes the obstruction is good. Sometimes the obstruction is bad. Sometimes the Argala is bad. But which one is making something happen or blocking it from happening? If there's no planet, still the Rashi is going to give Argala or obstruction. If it's a planet, and whatever the result that we know is best, that we want to happen, we can strengthen that planet through gemstones, through mantras, through anything that'll strengthen that planet. We can do that, strengthen that planet, and either get the Argala that we want or get the obstruction that we want. If I was eating too much tamasic food, all I'd have to do is strengthen my Jupiter, and it would stop me from eating tamasic food because of that Jupiter in the 12th house versus the Saturn in the 2nd. In the same way, if I had no planets there and only signs, for example, in my chart, it would be Cancer versus Taurus. So I'd want that Taurus is showing Rajasic foods, where Cancer is showing more Sattvic foods. So I want that Cancer to be stronger. If no planets are in it, they're aspecting it and all this. So how do I make that Cancer stronger?
With the moon? Would you look at the moon, the large?
For Argala. If, for example, for some reason I was eating too much Rajasic food and it was giving me health problems and I wanted to eat more Sattvic foods that the moon is indicating, then I use Rashi mantras. And that's what we have here. To strengthen the Rashi giving Argala or obstruction.
Wait, so you do, like, 2nd house is what they're doing, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so do you do the mantra, in your case, for
Mhm.
Cancer, to strengthen the sattvic qualities of that house?
Well, for me, I have Saturn there. I was just giving an example. If I wanted to increase that house so that I'm eating more sattvic, that I'm making gains and sustenance through more sattva, I would strengthen Cancer.
Okay.
Now, you can get even more specific, and you can tell somebody what kind of food they eat in different dashas, based on doing Argalas from the 2nd house. Look at the 3rd and the 1st. And look at the dasha and see what's giving Argala to that 2nd house. And when I first came to SJC, I could not get Argala. I just couldn't get it into my head. I couldn't get the point. And so Visti sat down with me, and we worked on Rama's chart and his 2nd house, what he ate. And we just worked on what he ate. And when Visti teaches Argala, his main thing is, he says, when was this person a vegetarian, when weren't they a vegetarian? Based on the Argala to that second house.
Can we do that?
So, let's take a break because you want a break, and then we'll just look at some charts.
So can these mantras be used to strengthen basically the Rashis that are planetless?
That are planetless.
Okay, but
That don't have any planets in the Argala or obstruction.
So you don't want to do these mantras if there are planets there because it changes the situation a bit.
Well, you do the planets.
Well, you know what I was thinking when I said the 10th, I really meant the 9th from. But the 10th.
10th
Signs there's no planets in it.
What I was talking about.
to pass on some of the Maurizio